Hello, this is Jed Brewer with Study Groups. It's very nice to have you on our SG Voices webinar today. Here with two industry experts, John Kelly, who's the Chief Revenue Officer at Mako Networks, and Casey Cook, who's the President at Pix Payments. We're going to be talking a little bit today about what we call C-Store Tech Talk, but faster payments and seamless networks. So John Kelly at Mako, in the second half of our call, will be talking more about seamless networks and how we can use those to our advantage. I'll describe that a little bit more as we get deeper into the call. We're going to start with Casey Cook, who's at Pix Payments, and Casey's going to talk some about faster payments. So some of the things he's going to touch on are the high costs that we have of slow payments. I know we all feel that pain point, and then give some helpful tips on how we can accelerate cash flow without sacrificing margin, and also provide some simple tools for operational efficiency. So our goal at SG Voices is to be your go-to resource for connecting with industry leaders. We have two industry leaders here that we hope you can connect with and learn from. We want you to be able to access trusted educational content and also to discover valuable insights that you can take home and implement in your business. So that's what our goal is here today. We want this to be educational. We want you to have the opportunity to be able to ask questions of these two education partners. So if you do have questions as we're going through, you are muted, but please type those questions into the GoToWebinar dialog box. I can see those, and then I'll relay them to Casey and John at an appropriate time. We want this to be conversational and educational. So that's a high level. We'll also record this, and we'll send out the recording and the slide decks that the people are going to be presenting to you afterwards, so you have those for resources as well. So with that high level introduction, let's get into business. And Casey, I'm going to turn the floor over to you and tell us a little bit more about how we can get paid faster and how we can all improve our businesses in this domain.
Great. Thank you, Jed. Well, with faster payments, I've got a lot of slides to get through today, Jed. So I'm also going to be talking fast. Slow me down if I need to, okay?
So instead of
But
C-Store Tech Talk, C-Store Fast Talk. I like it.
yeah, fast talk today. So jumping right into it, Jed, I'm sure you've seen online quizzes before. I'm going to quiz you, and you're going to represent the whole of our wholesalers and fuel marketers today. So let's take a quick quiz. Um, Jed, do you want your customers to pay on time?
Yes.
Okay. These questions might seem ridiculous, but trust me, they're important. Do you want predictable cash flow?
Yes, I would like that. That would feel
Okay.
nice.
Do you want your business to grow?
Yes.
Do you want to avoid chasing payments?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Jed, if you answered yes to this, then I'm sorry to say that you have an HBR diagnosis. You're a hopeless
What's
business.
HBR?
Yeah, it's a hopeless business romantic. These are outlandish ideas. If you said yes to any of these, of course you can't get paid faster or have more predictable cash flow or want your business to grow. You're a romantic. Um, but this is something we all want. And if I have your attention, if you said yes to any of that, that tells me we all have the same problem. So with that, and these problems often look like text messages, phone calls, and conversations like these. First up, I'm sure you've all seen this before. Send me a load today. I'll pay up front. Sounds great, right? But sidestepping your underwriting process and truing up delivery can really lead to unexpected risk. Next, the classic checks in the mail. We've all heard it. It's a go-to delay tactic that can wreak havoc on your cash flow and accounting team. Then there's those, hey, resend those wiring instructions. It's a process that we all do, and it never works as smoothly as we'd like. And also, we just have to hold our breath that we didn't just send all of our money to Nigeria by accident by typing in the wrong deal. And lastly, you get this from time to time too. Can I pay with a credit card just this once? And if that's not already in your workflow, while it can seem harmless and it seems reasonable for the customers to ask for this, accepting inconsistent payment methods complicates your reconciliation and adds to your workload if it's not done properly. So all common scenarios, and if we're not careful, these can hold your business hostage. And in some ways, your business is being held hostage today. Late payments, lost checks, manual processes that drain your time, limited payment options frustrate your customers. Your accounting teams are under stress, or your accounts payable, accounts receivables teams are under stress. Working capital is tied up in halting growth, and potentially missing prompt pay discounts with your suppliers not only affects your vendor relationships, but also your bottom line. And lastly, if you are considering online payments, it often feels overwhelming, and the card processing fees can seem expensive or even bewildering. These complicated tools and expenses are holding your business back. And so the big question we want to answer today is, what do we do about it? Well, I think there's hope, and that's why we're here today. Payment headaches really are your Everest, and today we're here to be your Sherpa. Pix Payments was really born from an industry need. When we started out, we were built for oil companies, building software to help jobbers secure receivables when they're supplying unbranded retailers. So we've really spent the last 10 years refining our expertise, serving over 50 jobbers in 1,000 C-stores with specialized payment solutions. This experience gives us the insight to address your specific needs effectively. And now we're expanding in our offerings of online payments. This really means lower fees, clear reporting, and simplified accounting for all fuel marketers, not just unbranded suppliers. I think our goal is really to clear the runway for you by eliminating software headaches and freeing you from the endless cycle of chasing payments. So with that, thank you for letting us be your guide today. And let's take a look at our approach to getting you paid faster. So we really want to just help you secure online payments while keeping your margins intact. We're going to introduce some simple tools and concepts for you to consider. And instead of chasing payments, we want to help you focus on what really matters, which is growing your business. So let's move on to the scariest thing about online payments, which everybody knows is credit card processing fees. Since the fuel wholesale industry is a thin margin industry to begin with, it's understandable that your fear of offering online payments will erode profits. But in contrast, modern retailers and businesses demand faster, more flexible options. So offering these options can actually boost and attract more customers and sales volume. So really, which one matters more, keeping those margins intact or more volume? I say, why not both? And today we're going to focus really on card payments and ACH payments. So card processing has its nuances. I'm sure you've heard of card not present transactions and how they tend to be pricier than card present ones. However, remember, in most states, you can legally implement surcharges and convenience fees to offset those costs. And we'll take a look at that in more detail in a few minutes. And on the other hand, you have pay by bank or ACH, where the transactions are slower compared to credit cards or wires, but it's easier and more cost effective. Today, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on real-time payments, but looking ahead, innovations like FedNow and RTP, or real-time payments, promise quicker transactions, although bank participation is still limited. Really, for this technology to work, your bank and your customer's bank both have to be participating. And as we all know, banks are pretty slow movers when it comes to new technology. So really think of FedNow and real-time payments as like Zelle for businesses, or Venmo. Also, there's the emergence of technologies like stable coins. And just within the last week or so, both Amazon and Walmart announced they're considering stable coins and their potential for their business. It's really bypassing the traditional payment rails altogether, but it seems pretty limited in its scope. And I think once those companies figure it out, it'll disseminate into industries like ours. I think ultimately, though, the big picture here is selecting the right mix of payment options can significantly enhance your business's efficiency and customer satisfaction. So let's talk about why online card processing is higher fees than in-person transactions. So we're going to take a couple looks at key reasons why these fees are higher. First, online transactions carry enhanced fraud risk. Without a physical card being present or EMV chip card processing, they're more susceptible to security threats. This places transactions at a higher risk category and therefore higher fees. Also, next, consider chargeback vulnerability. Customers can more easily dispute online purchases, which increases the risk for processors and again raises the fees. In addition to that, card not present is what online payments are considered by the payment networks. This classification automatically leads to higher rates due to the absence of a physical card for the transaction. And then you have additional security requirements. I'm sure you've purchased something online and you had to type in your address or a CVV validation. Those little steps of verification, processors charge more for those, which adds to the cost. And finally, the processing infrastructure for digital payments includes gateways. Gateways are really essential for online transactions. Think of a gateway really as your virtual point of sale, but they do also contribute to the overall fee structure. So taking a look at a $100 Visa transaction online versus in person, let's just take a quick look at this. So base interchange, what Visa applies their fee to this transaction for in person would be 1.51% and 10 cents for that transaction. Same exact purchase, but done online is 1.8% and 10 cents. So you're already at 30 basis points higher. And even with assessment fees and your processor markups being the same for both, you still have to add gateway transaction fees a lot of times. So your overall effective rate is going to be 50 basis points higher. And on a single
Casey,
transaction, yeah, go ahead.
What was that gateway fee again?
25 cents here on this particular transaction.
In concept, though, what's the
Oh, in
gateway
concept.
fee?
That is your processor charging you in addition to the processing fee for their gateway fee. So a lot of processors don't have their own gateway. So they're using a third party gateway, something like authorize.net. And authorize.net, for being a part of this transaction, Jed, they're going to want to take a cut of that as well. So, to relate it to a gas station is like as if Verifone or Gilbarco wanted to take a piece of the transaction in addition to the card network. That's how gateway fees work.
So instead of the card network taking a smaller margin for using a third party, they pass that on to you, keep their
Oh
same
yeah, they
margin.
don't eat that. But you do have
Yeah.
you'll see here upcoming where there's a lot of modern digital first payment options that have their own gateway and they don't charge additional fees for that. So all in, when you consider all the different parties that take place for an online transaction, you're paying anywhere from 50 to 100 basis points higher depending on who your processor is. This is also a good illustration of if you have people coming into your office to pay, whether it's just some supplies or they're coming to pay their home heating oil bill, and they want to pay, and you have the choice of typing it into your computer for payment or processing with a terminal. It's always advisable if people are coming into your office to have a card present terminal because it will qualify at a lower fee. So, the real question is here, how do we combat this? How do we offset that higher online fee if we want to take online processing fees? And that's where terms like surcharging, cash discounting, and convenience fees all come into play. You might have used these terms interchangeably, but the card brands and banks define them separately. So I'll just kind of run through this. Surcharging, these are additional fees on top of credit card transactions. They have to be capped at 3%, and they're designed to offset the processing costs. Note too, the surcharging is not allowed on debit cards and is prohibited or restricted in certain states like California and Texas. The second concept is cash discounting. If you have pay at the pump and you offer cash discounting, you're familiar with this idea. But the simple idea is you post a price, and if people to come to pay with cash, you lower the final price. It's allowed in all 50 states, and the posted price, um, you cannot post the cash price, and if they want to pay with a card, they pay a higher amount. That is just surcharging under disguise, so you can't do that. Um, and then the final concept is really a convenience fee. So convenience fee is really an extra charge for a non-standard way of paying. So imagine somebody wants to pay online for an invoice, you charge an extra $5 for it. A couple key things to note about adding a convenience fee for online payments is you can do it both for card payments and ACH payments. You cannot charge a convenience fee for face-to-face payments. So just a
So,
couple ideas there. Yeah, go ahead.
so you can put a convenience fee on debit cards?
You can. Yeah, online payments. Really, convenience fee is if you offer in-person payments, but you're giving someone the ability to pay online, they're going to pay a fee for the convenience of paying online. That's why you can do it to any payment method. So the other distinguishing piece here, Jed, between convenience fees and surcharging is really a percentage of the sale fee. A convenience fee has to be a fixed fee and it has to be the same amount for any payment type.
Regardless of the amount of transaction. That makes sense.
That's right. And so that's really, the more expensive card processing and ways to offset that. Now let's jump into ACHs. And if you're a fuel marketer, you know about ACHs and the idea of pull transactions. So I really want to just take a few minutes to distinguish the idea of a pull transaction versus a push transaction, or some call it credit versus a debit. A pull transaction is a merchant initiated transaction, often done with a notcha file that you send to your own bank, and it goes out and pulls all the funds from your customer's bank. A key point here about the fee structure and why a lot of fuel marketers like this is it's very, very cheap to do it. In some cases, it's free depending on your agreement with your bank. And while we all wish that every customer would just allow pull transactions because you can go grab the money whenever you need it, you all know that there's plenty of businesses that never want anyone debiting their operating cash. And that's why push transactions exist, which are customer initiated transactions. And oftentimes these are processed through a third party. So there's lots of different fee structures you can experience with push transactions. One is the idea of a fixed fee. So, 10 cents to $7. The other is a variable fee where you take a percentage of the sale and a fixed transaction fee. So take 1% of the sale plus 25 cents a transaction. And in some cases, your processor will allow a capped fee. So they're going to charge a variable fee, but they'll cap the fee at some reasonable number, $10 or so. But in the same light, other processors might say there's no cap fee. And in fact, if you have large transactions, we're going to charge you a premium for larger transactions. Take, for instance, 10 basis points for transactions over $10,000. When it comes to settlement times, the difference between pull and push, if you go pull funds, you have to settle that within 1 business days. When it comes to push transactions, customers paying you, processors, depending on the processor and your setup, they settle anywhere from 1 business day to 4 business days. And then when it comes to ACHs, there are common returns, which all pose different risks. So like a chargeback, but whether it's insufficient funds or unauthorized debits, there are some risks, but not as many as when it comes to card chargebacks. And I think really understanding these nuances, you can make better decisions when it comes to ACH if you want to offer ACH push transactions. So kind of bringing it all together here, when it comes to card payments and ACH payments, if you want to bring in the idea of surcharging, which is your friend when it comes to online payments, and even capped fee ACH processing, you can see an example here of how low your fees can actually be. So standard online processing is typically around 3%. So take someone like Stripe, who's a digital first processing company, charging around 3%. If you're surcharging 3%, that pretty well wipes out all of the card processing fee you'd have, with the exception of some business cards and American Express cards. Take, for instance, this American Express, if there was a $5,000 sale, surcharging would be $150, but the total fees are $152. Still, the fees you were left paying are pretty negligible compared to the overall if you're not doing surcharging. Debit here is a good example of, if you have a debit transaction, you cannot surcharge that. So if you have a processor who's giving you dynamic pricing, a different fee for debit cards and other cards, you should be able to expect your effective rate to be around 2.2%, somewhere in that range. And then take the concept of capped fee, ACHs. If your ACH processor is charging you 1% and 30 cents a transaction, but they're capping the total fee at $10, then a $500 transaction wouldn't hit that cap. It would just be $5.30, effective rate of 1%. But anything over $1,000 will hit that capped fee concept. So a $10,000 transaction capped at $10 gives you really an effective rate of 10%, or sorry, 10 basis points. And then even a $100,000 transaction gives you an effective rate of 1 basis point. So if this was your processing for a given day and you had these 5 or 6 transactions, you could realistically expect your effective rate to be at around 4 basis points. So something to consider if you're going to take online payments, whether it's when it comes to negotiating your rates with your processor or considering what tools to incorporate. Leveraging these methods can really help you keep more of your hard-earned revenue.
So surcharging, how common is that out there? I mean, in our industry, are people doing it with regularity? Would I be standing out by implementing something like that?
In our industry, no. It makes people frustrated at a retail level. But when it comes to larger transactions, especially service-based businesses, so take roofing contractors or anybody who might have a larger ticket, it's a pretty common practice now to add surcharging on top of your fees. And in reality, when it comes to the fuel marketing business, it's already a thin margin business. So I think there's greater acceptance of that. And I've got some evidence to back it up here in just a few minutes, Jed, that I'll get to. Want to fly through this because I still have a lot of ground to cover. If you're considering online payments, there are 6 must-have features of any processor. One is easy online payment portal. It seems more and more with new technology, you end up with exhausted team members trying to figure out how to run and get help running these technologies. So it being easy to set up is super key and easy to operate. Digital invoicing, the ability to send and track invoices with automatic delivery confirmation. Smart automation, so setting up recurring billing, automated payment reminders. That's really your silent hero when it comes to running online payments. An important one we're going to get to in more detail here in a few minutes is connecting invoicing or payments directly into your Petro accounting software. Then you have enhanced visibility, just the ability to see what is outstanding, what's upcoming, what's due, what's overdue, the ability to track that. And then when it comes to onboarding, simplicity, really a one-stop shop for card processing, ACH processing, and gateway services. The reality is most legacy processors don't have any of these 3 components on the same platform, which means more setup and higher pricing. And even worse with legacy processors, they have the most painful manual underwriting process. So I think these are 6 pieces you should take with you when considering an online processor. So let's kind of zoom in to the accounting integration piece of this. What I have here really is just a very simple visual of what I think the readiness of each of these platforms are for you to have truly integrated online payments. So first up, when it comes to petro accounting software like PDI Enterprise or Ad Systems or iRely, they dominate the industry and they're really good tools, but they oftentimes lack modern integration tools like APIs and webhooks. This creates a real bottleneck in the automation process. And, it's understandable why their limitations are key, a key piece of this. So I give it 25%, and you should start with your Petro accounting software when it comes to online payments to see how ready they are for payments. When it comes to you getting online payments into working, legacy processors who you probably already work with in some form or another, they get you 50% of the way there. Their systems tend to work in silos, which aren't ideal for seamless processes and operations. And getting that final pieces of it all to work together is really a bear. And then when you come to digital first options like Stripe and Square and QuickBooks Online, they are 75% of the way there for you being able to take a payment online, get it set up easily. But the last 25% is very complicated when it comes to integrating with the petroleum industry. These companies are very slow to do much of anything in our industry. So I think it's important to remember that online payments is a tango, and if the two dance partners are legacy petro accounting software and legacy processors, you're going to get your feet stepped on a lot. And just to give you an idea of how poorly integrations can go, I'd love to see a show of hands of everybody who's in a 2-year upgraded process with their accounting software. Obviously, I'm just having to pretend, but yeah, Jed, I think everybody's hand up is in the room right now. So, that just gives you a picture of if you're going to consider online payments and how slow the migration or upgrades have been. I know that can be a headache for everybody. But as far as some real results, for the last 4 years, we've partnered with PDS Solutions, who a lot of you know as Davy or Davy's Portal. And our partnership has really taken out 90% of the headache of online payments. For those of you who don't know, Davy builds custom portals for petroleum marketers. I know a lot of you already work with him. And if you've worked with him, you know that he's really the gold standard in this sector of the industry. It's a great product he's built, and he's very good to work with. Everyone seems to love him when it comes to that. And when we work together to build online payments, what we've truly seen is reduced AR cycles, automated reconciliation, operational efficiency, and improved cash flow of all of our customers. With some real numbers to this, to consider, just a sampling of some of our customers. We have clients who range in volumes of $50,000 a month to $4 million a month, with individual transactions reaching even $300,000. I think this highlights the flexibility and scalability of our platform. Company-wide effective rate of 11 basis points, even combining card payments and ACH payments. And as Jed, you were asking about earlier, we are incorporating surcharging and capped fees already. So it shows you there. And I think this is just an interesting fact. 90% of our customers have adopted ACH payments, a real testament to the cost effectiveness of this payment. And I think, the key benefits that our customers tell us over and over again is they've eliminated opening checks and mismatch invoices with the wrong amounts paid, and to streamline their accounting reconciliation by Davy's Portal being really written into the back office of some of these major accounting softwares. And, just getting some feedback from some of our customers, a VP of Finance for a Texas jobber told us, online payments has helped our processes so much that we don't even track our fees too closely, but I'm really surprised to see how low they are. A couple more slides to jump through here. I do want to take just a minute to zoom in. Today, we're also introducing you to the idea of Invoice Fuel. This is really the next iteration of us offering online payments. It's really born from a decade of insights in doing what we started, which is 10 years of payment processing and billions of dollars processed. And really, it's designed, this next phase is really designed that extra 10% that we couldn't solve in the first iteration of this. Um, it has all those pieces that we find really important. Digital invoicing, reminders and subscriptions, and versatile payment tools, such as custom payment pages, dynamic surcharging, and customer management all in one place. And with the relationship with Davy, um, it's going to have complete integration in the petroleum software. Right now, we're on online payments 1.0 with PDS Solutions and Davy's Portal. By year end, we're moving to 2.0, which is Invoice Fuel, so everybody will be on this. And just as a comparison for why this stands out from legacy processors and even from some digital first processors like Stripe and QuickBooks, is custom built for the petroleum software world. Um, and again, it has everything built in that you'd want, and card fees and ACH fees are lower than the industry standard. So I know I'm running low on time, Jed, here. So to kind of wrap it all together, some of you might be interested in online payments or even invoice fuel, and there are steps you can begin taking today. The first thing I'd recommend is just assess your current state. How much time is your team spent chasing payments? Do an audit of your check errors and misapplied payments. And then two, explore your available options. Talk to your Petro accounting software. If you have a payment portal with Davy, talk to him about incorporating online payments. If you don't have it through somebody else, ask your portal builder through what options they do offer in payments. And then, lastly, if you want to take action today, I do recommend reaching out to PDS Solutions if you're in the market for building a portal. Cannot recommend them highly enough. And then for you guys being here today, if Invoice Fuel or online payments interest you at all, we're giving an exclusive offer just to study groups members and SG Voices. First people to sign up will receive 6 months of Invoice Fuel for free. So something that we'll take a look at in just a second. So I think some of you really might be still stuck with the idea of, hey, we're stuck in the middle of an accounting migration. It's been a nightmare. We don't have time for this. And I get it. Or you might just say, I don't think online payments is for us right now, but I want to talk to you about the stakes at hand, between the real stakes at hand. So in some cases, you might be at a cash flow crisis where unpredictable payments are really hurting your ability to grow. In some cases, your staff might be maxed out and stressed because they spend time wasting chasing payments versus focusing on areas of business growth. And then you might be missing out on opportunities to win new customers. So I think with that, the challenge there is the stakes at line are really, do you want outdated payment processes to be holding your business back? So with that, in closing, I really want your business to experience faster, stress-free payments. So you're free to focus on what you can do best. I hope as I flew through these slides that we gave you a little bit clearer picture of how that can be your reality. And lastly, selfishly, I would love for Invoice Fuel to be a part of your journey. And so I'd love to hear from you, how we can help you. You can reach us by that link or scan the QR code to fill out a quick form. We'd just love to hear your feedback. With
Thanks,
that,
Casey. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and I know card fees are such a pain point. It's really hard to earn a dollar in this industry, and then every penny we can save, is just dollars to the bottom line for us all. So appreciate you sharing that insight, Casey, and yeah, and for the offer to our study group members. So if you want to take Casey up on that, feel free. But good information. We'll send this slide deck out to everybody at the same time. Appreciate your time, Casey. We're going to keep moving and move on to John Kelly, who's with Mako Networks. Changing gears slightly, going from payments and online payments and fees associated with it, but to networks. And they're all part of larger networks that we're talking about here today, but powering secure, scalable, and seamless networking. And John at Mako Networks is going to talk with us a little bit about networking 101, how and why we set up networks, how the digital transformation that's ongoing changes network demands at our sites, and the impacts and trends in modern networking solutions. So, really grateful, John, to have you and Mako Networks and your expertise in networking to shed some insight in for us, and just a high level about John's company. But they provide robust, fully managed networking solutions. They incorporate things like SD-WAN, firewalls, managed switches, Wi-Fi, and everything with them is centrally located via their cloud-based central management system that they have. So a lot of acronyms that we could throw out, PCI, et cetera. But John, you're going to talk with us about networking today, so I'll turn the floor over to you and tell us how we can revolutionize C-store connectivity.
You bet. Thank you, Jed, and thanks, Casey, for all the interesting information about credit card fees. Obviously, a very big topic for retailers. Very happy to be here today. SG Voices and Study Groups is a great organization. We really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of information with you today, and hopefully you find it informative and interesting. Can you see my screen okay, Jed?
Yeah, it looks good.
Excellent. Cool. So just a quick bit about Mako. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we do have a global footprint. The company was founded in New Zealand 25 years ago. We are now a US-based organization, but we've got offices across the world. Our solutions are deployed in over 30,000 branded and unbranded retail fueling facilities globally. We're very proud of that and continuing to expand. We have a fully integrated networking stack that includes both our own hardware, including edge devices, as Jed mentioned, like firewalls and managed switches, as well as the software that helps you manage all of it remotely. We've really, since our outset, been purpose-built for petroleum retail. The first big customer that Mako had was Chevron, and since then, the organization has really dialed in the product and technology focus to meet the needs of distributed petroleum retail. And so it's really kind of fit for purpose these days. We are an approved network vendor for nearly every major oil brand, also something that we're quite proud of. There's only one major oil brand at the moment that we haven't secured authorization for, but everyone else, ExxonMobil, BP, Valero, Chevron, Sunoco, all those big brands as well as unbranded facilities are able to use our technology. We're MNSP certified by Gilbarco and Verifone, and we have relationships with many other POS vendors in the space and lots of integrations that are relevant to retail petroleum. So yeah, that's a bit about us. But the goal of today is really to dive into a bit of maybe some deeper understanding for you all about how networks are set up and why they're set up the way that they are in retail petroleum today, as well as some opportunities to drive cost efficiencies, reduce tech sprawl, and make things a bit simpler and more efficient for your organization. As many of you are well aware, Study Groups has really leading edge petroleum distributors and retailers, and so you're sort of well aware of the demand for technology that's being pulled and pushed into the convenience store these days. Almost everything is undergoing a quote digital transformation. I think we've probably all heard that more times than we want, but everything is going online, from payments, as we've just discussed with Casey, to loyalty, as well as to store operations. Remote monitoring and CCTV is all being managed remotely. Equipment like fridges and tank monitors and point of sale systems all being managed remotely. People implementing inventory monitoring technology on their shelving, all this type of stuff. But all this technology demands performance, security, and uptime at all times. And really, the edge, as we call it, is the battleground where your technology goals meet reality and data is generated, collected, and processed. And you have to have the ability to count on your systems to be running at all times and to be running securely if you want to fully leverage the technology that you're deploying. So the edge is really an important space these days. I came across this recently, which I think is very interesting and quite impactful, which is a hierarchy of IT needs. Some of you may be familiar with the business school thing of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which talks about you have to have, as a human being, your basic needs like food and shelter met before you can kind of, go up the ladder about, having, friendships and meaning and fulfillment and all that type of stuff. But that concept, I think, also applies within IT. And the basis of everything really has to do with keeping the lights on. You have to have a rock solid network foundation to ensure that you're up, ensure that you're compliant, and that you're keeping the lights on, as they say. Only once you've secured that strong base of the pyramid can you start to think about reducing cost and complexity. You have to have a dependable system, but at first, to keep the lights on, you're doing whatever it takes, and you're sending out technicians, and you're doing this and you're doing that. But once you've stabilized things, then you can start to say, okay, where can we cut cost and reduce complexity? Once you've got that system in place, it's cost effective, it's manageable, then and only then can you really start to create value for your organization by doing things that really delight customers as well as employees, because you're trying to attract both to your businesses. And then once you've kind of started to really prove and create value as an IT organization, then can you really start to innovate and stretch the boundaries of what's possible as far as technology deployment at your stores. And so, the reason I share all of this is because where we play is really at the base of the pyramid. If you don't have that really solid, it doesn't matter, how much you want to have a robotic French fry flipper. If your network's not working and you can't monitor and manage that equipment, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to focus on the foundational bits today. It's not the sexiest bit, but it's extremely important. So as I've just kind of pointed out on my a couple slides ago, the explosion of technology in retail tech, in retail just in general, is creating serious demands on network infrastructure. More and more customers and employees are demanding improved performance, improved convenience, less friction, better connectivity, all those sorts of things. We're seeing AI and all sorts of applications come in as well that are improving the experience at the edge and in the store. That is creating, that adds a lot more high bandwidth activities and technologies to your network that need to be able to perform. Furthermore, network infrastructure really matters, because if you just continue to throw more and more things in without a streamlined and efficient process, you end up incurring a lot of costs. You end up, everyone's, probably familiar with subscription fatigue. Everyone's trying to charge a recurring fee for this and a recurring fee for that. Not only do those fees add up, but then your number of vendors starts to add up, and that really puts a strain on your productivity and efficiency as well. Furthermore, petroleum retail is a very complicated business. When you have multiple locations where you're processing payments and credit cards, or you're doing so at not only multiple locations, but multiple branded locations where you have different requirements and so on and so forth, there's a real risk of inconsistency, lack of visibility, really just a complex brew of technologies that might be out there that make your life quite challenging. In addition to all of that, in any kind of retail, in petroleum retailers, you've got a number of stakeholders that have different priorities that all need to be met cost effectively and reliably. For those of you that have branded operations, you have to meet brand requirements for security and managing payment data. Point of sale vendors similarly have strict requirements around what you need to do from a connectivity standpoint. You have your own technology that you wish to deploy, whether it's CCTV, whether guest Wi-Fi, inventory monitoring, some of the stuff that I pointed out a couple slides ago. You want to be, delivering those things so that your customers, employees have a good experience. But those don't always necessarily the same things the brands and the point of sale vendors want. Finally, you have the site operators, the people that are behind the desk or the counter at the location, who just want things to work all the time so they can focus on taking care of the customers that are walking through the front door. So all these different needs, all these different stakeholders that all depend on technology, that all have different priorities, creates an additional complexity within petroleum retail that you have to face every day. Now, how does this manifest itself in the typical petroleum environment? Well, what we have seen as we go and talk to customers about their networking infrastructure is that typically in the petroleum space, people will have a payments network, and then they will have a secondary network for everything that's not related to payments. Now, it kind of makes sense why people would do this. Brands who require operators to have a managed network service provider, or MNSP, to oversee all the payment processing, say, here's your box, this is the one that, ExxonMobil or Shell or BP or whoever demands that you have, but it's quite limited in terms of what it can do. It really just focuses on payment, and it's very locked down. So when you want to deploy other things like your back office, like, a tank monitoring, like some of these other, remote access things, you have to stand up an internal firewall to do what it is that you need. Now, a lot of people will go and they'll buy something that's not petroleum specific, something from Meraki or Fortinet or some of these other vendors that have generic firewall systems, and that's fine, but it's not really fit for purpose, and you're combining multiple systems here to get your store running smoothly, which creates some complexity. As I mentioned, MNSPs typically restrict retailer access and control. That's done for good reason, but it creates difficulty, which is why in that you cannot deploy your own technology using that firewall, so you have to stand up a second network. We've talked about the increasing network demands from these high bandwidth and high demand things that are streaming data, streaming Wi-Fi connectivity, so on and so forth, which is going to increase the pressure on your network to perform. And that's why people end up leaning on these secondary networks. In addition to cost, the complexity of having multiple networks is significant. It also creates third-party dependencies that can lead to challenges from a support standpoint. Who do you call if something goes wrong, if you've got 3 or 4 different vendors that are touching your network? What system do you log into to troubleshoot the problem if you don't know exactly the source of the problem? How do you manage everything from one place when you've got multiple different ways to log in and access things remotely? And then also if you're kind of cobbling together different solutions, these third-party dependencies can occasionally be custom to you, which makes them somewhat brittle or susceptible to breaking down. And then the last thing that we've seen is that when people are running multiple networks at their location, they typically tend to avoid upgrading the equipment until they really have to. And so what we often see is that people who have an MNSP payments network that's come from the brand is quite antiquated, and it's an older piece of equipment that can't necessarily process the level of throughput that you need for some things like retail media or other high bandwidth applications that might be out there. But because that the retailer is running 2 networks side by side, they say, I don't really want to continue to invest in upgrading equipment because I've just got so much that I'm already paying for already. So we see this quite regularly. It's not something people necessarily always think about as top of mind, but it's a reality that's out there. What we see in terms of the future of retail networking is a real need and demand for a single petroleum network stack that allows you to consolidate the equipment that you have at your location into the minimal number of pieces of equipment that you have and the minimum number of devices at your store, while being able to meet all the needs and all the priorities from all the different stakeholders. So what top operators these days are doing, they're looking at a single network stack that meets the brand, the point of sale, the individual retailer, and then down to the site operator needs with both redundancy and centralized management, so that you can take care of everything with the minimal amount of equipment and devices at the store, which creates fewer failure points and improves your redundancy. The way this is done is with advanced technology, where you have built-in security through segregated data and access. And one of the things that we do at Mako is we provide one single unit, one single firewall device, which successfully isolates the important information for the brand and the firewall rules for the brand, anything that a point of sale vendor has to contain, and then still gives the flexibility for operators to add their own technology, firewall rules, whatever it may be for their network needs through the same piece of equipment and through the same management dashboard. Furthermore, there are specific tools and dashboards that staff in the store can use, that gives them access to the equipment, through a virtual or through a dashboard or whatever, so they can make sure that they understand what's going on at all times. I wanted to highlight a particular case of this where we had a retailer down in Texas, and in fact, we recently published our Q2 SG Voices article about this specific incident, where TXP, which is a quite well-known operator down in Texas, was experiencing degraded performance, even though they had upgraded their bandwidth. They have a very sophisticated in-store operation with lots of technology. They've got retail media at the pump. They have digital menu boards, digital signs, guest Wi-Fi, employee Wi-Fi, all of these things. And what they were finding was that the edge device firewall was actually throttling their throughput. They didn't realize this until they had already gone about upgrading their bandwidth with their internet service provider. They said, hey, we're not getting what we need, and so they were paying for 100 megabits per second from the ISP, but they were still only actually realizing about 30 megabits per second. So they were spending all this money, but they were getting restricted performance. They ended up figuring out that the legacy edge device had limited processing capacity and wasn't able to manage the throughput that they needed. And so once they replaced these older devices with advanced edge devices, they were able to unlock all that speed, and all these devices that they had deployed at their stores, all these technology solutions that they deployed at their stores, they were able to fully leverage and take full advantage of. This goes back to the pyramid that I showed at the beginning. They were kind of at the top of the pyramid doing some really innovative things, but the networking and the keeping the lights on hadn't been taken care of by a legacy edge device and networking solution. So they ended up upgrading. If you want more information about that, check out the SG Voices website, because we've included a link to that here as well. So essentially, what can you do today if you are looking for petroleum networking success? The key ingredients that we have seen are simplicity, performance, and redundancy. That's how you get the most bang for the buck and value out of your solution. So the first thing is to consolidate your devices and systems. Tech sprawl is a real problem in this industry, and so when and where you can eliminate unnecessary hardware, we strongly recommend that you do so. Upgrading edge devices, I just pointed out with the TXP case study, can really improve performance. There are things that have been out there in the field for 10 plus years, and the amount of technology change that's happened in a decade is very significant. So strongly recommend upgrading to much more modern and high throughput equipment when you can. Furthermore, there are lots of solutions that you can choose from a networking standpoint, but one of the things that we'd advise is seeking solutions that are really fit for purpose. One of the things Casey pointed out in his presentation was some of the solutions that are really designed for this industry, and it's really important to leverage those solutions when you can, because petroleum is a unique operating environment. There are some aspects of the Mako solution that we've recently introduced that provide the ability to do things like monitor your underground storage tanks remotely, or to dial into your point of sale system remotely, which is built into the functionality of the central management system, and it gives you that real kind of fit for purpose functionality where you can control everything under one system as opposed to having to dial into multiple different tools to manage your locations. And the final thing we'd recommend is demanding best-in-class redundancy. Now, that's internally, for the stuff that you use at your store, ensuring you have things like reliable and fast cellular failover in case your internet ever goes out of a location. But furthermore, it's about demanding the best from your vendors and your network vendors, and making sure that they aren't taking any kinds of risks that might jeopardize the performance of your operation. A lot of network vendors right now thread all the data to a data center before it can actually go out to the payment processors or the loyalty hosts or anything like that. And what that ends up doing is creating a single point of failure, which is a risk. And you do see occasionally statewide outages through some network vendors for this exact reason. The way that we've designed our technology is direct connections to payment processors. So each site is actually sending data directly to payment processors, which improves redundancy as well as processing speed. So if you have more questions, please feel free to reach out. Hopefully this was informative and useful about some of the ways that networks are established today, some of the things that people maybe don't realize about the risks of setting up networks with multiple stacks, and some options and considerations for ways that you can avoid the risks and pitfalls that are associated with that approach. We also have a special offer for study groups members today. Feel free to get in touch and set up a demo of our central management system and some of the tools that we've got that I mentioned earlier that are petroleum specific about accessing your point of sale and other systems remotely, and your tank monitor. We'll throw those in for free for 6 months for anyone who schedules a demo through this event today. There's a code there as well, and once you get these slides, you can reference that when you reach out to our team. So happy to answer any questions that may have come up through the chat, or anything, Jed, that you'd like to cover. But appreciate everyone's time today and the opportunity to share a bit about Mako.
Thank you so much, John. Appreciate all that. You were mentioning this unified network stack, and like the goal is to ultimately get there. How close are we, and what are the major obstacles?
Well, Mako's that. We're certainly that's something that we do and we do quite well. I think one of the obstacles though that people find is realistically when you have multiple different brands, you sometimes have different approved MNSPs that you can use. And so it's like, okay, well, if I've got a BP location and a Sunoco location and an ExxonMobil location, I have to follow each of their requirements around their set of approved vendors that exists. And so they may not always be, they may not all have approved all the same vendors. One of the points I made at the beginning of the presentation was that we're approved by almost all except one, but we're working on it, which is Shell. Which gives us the ability to provide a multi-branded operator the ability to develop consistency across all of their locations, as opposed to other network vendors that don't have the approval, the widespread approval from the major oil brands that we have.
That's something unique that you've solved because you're right. I mean, so much of us, we've grown through acquisition. We got different brands for different reasons. And yeah, trying to get everything to integrate onto one platform can be really challenging. What advice also do you have for managers out there who may be hesitant to embrace this digital transformation that you're talking about, maybe due to cost concerns or complexity? It just sounds overwhelming.
Well, I think the key is really to make sure that you've got, there's lots of stuff that's out there, and you go to any trade show, and it's sort of overwhelming when you go into the new product section, how many different things are out there, and how much stuff has to do with AI these days, and blah blah blah. I think really ensuring that you're focusing on your own internal operations, what is going to make the most sense for us to deliver value, and focusing on your customers. What is it that our customers really need in order to continue to come back to our facilities, reliably and get a good experience? I think focusing in on the things that are really adding value before getting carried away with shiny objects that might be out there is really critical. But it's really about understanding your business, understanding your customers, which I think will help kind of narrow down the funnel of different technology choices that you want to make. Relying on organizations like study groups to go and hear from your peers about what's working and what's not is really important as well, because there's no one better than the guy down the street to tell you what types of technologies he's deployed and had success with or had failures with, frankly, as well. Important to hear about both of those sorts of things. But yeah, I think understanding yourself and understanding your customers is really key, and having a solid network foundation so that you can choose whatever technologies you want and deploy them easily and at scale.
I love that hierarchy of needs that you put there. Like, we can do this innovative stuff, which is great. We should be pushing the edge there, but that blocking and tackling, or you call it keep the lights on, is just so critical. And I feel for all the IT people out there because it feels like it's very binary. Either it works or it doesn't, and there's no sort of hiding or middle ground in between. I could have swept the floor a little bit better, but it's good enough. If the lights don't come on, everybody's mad. So I appreciate the role that you play, and all the other IT directors out there. Just give you guys a thank you for everything that you do. And John, appreciate all your thoughts. We're at the end of our time here, but yeah, we'll share John's contact information as well as Casey Cook's. We look forward to having you again on our next SG Voices webinar. Mark your dates. It's July 17th. We'll have Powerhouse and RowLogic on as well. And yeah, there'll be a quick survey after this. We just encourage you. It's like two or three questions. We want your feedback on how we can continue to improve and make things relevant for you as an audience member. So thank you for being a part of SG Voices. Have a wonderful day. We have the solstice coming up here. It may be tomorrow, it may be the next day, but enjoy all the daylight that we have. Take care.
Thanks, Jed.